You boys be quiet down there!
This time on PC-88 Paradise, I want to show you the PC-88 model which I own, the PC-8801MC. You may have seen glimpses of it in my previous episodes where I've concentrated on the games for this system, but today I'm going to give an in-depth look at the hardware. I've been wanting to do this since long before I even started this series, and I am nothing short of delighted to finally show you my PC-88 system today. If you clicked on this video because of the title and are anxious to know how this system relates to the PC engine and the TurboGrafx, don't worry, I'm going to get to that. Rather than skipping ahead though, I would recommend you stick around and watch because this is a very interesting piece of hardware and a fascinating part of NEC's history. I want to apologize right up front for the poor quality of my camera. Perhaps someday I can do another video on this system when I have a better camera. So first of all, let me give you a little background on when and why this particular model of PC-88 was released. It was the late 80s, and the PC-88's reign as one of Japan's most popular computers for home and business was nearing its end. The first model of PC-88 had been released way back in 1981, and since then several subsequent models with superior specs and added features had been released in order to extend the lifespan of the 8-bit series. NEC's 16-bit series of computers, the PC-98, which would eventually replace the PC-88, was already around and was beginning to finally overtake the PC-88 in market share. Despite this, the PC-88 hardware and software continued to sell due to the established user base and software, much like how in America the Apple II continued to sell long after the first Macintosh had been released. In 1987, NEC had already tried to introduce a 16-bit version of the PC-88 called the PC-88 VA, which was focused on multimedia computing, but it didn't catch on. It was significantly pricier than any previous model PC-88, and consumers were confused by the fact that NEC already had a line of 16-bit computers, the PC-98. So, picture this. It's 1989, and you're NEC. What do you do? Well, first they did the most obvious thing, release a couple of PCs capable of running both PC-88 and PC-98 software, the PC-98 Do and the Do Plus. And secondly, they released the ultimate 8-bit model PC-88 to end all PC-88s, the PC-8801MC. The MC had a striking tower PC design, something which was quite new and uncommon for the 80s. Hardware-wise, this machine incorporated all the bells and whistles of the best 8-bit PC-88s released previously, while maximizing compatibility with older PC-88 software. Plus, the MC had one new trick that I'm going to show you in a bit. So let's take a close look at this beast. On the front panel, you can see two vertical floppy drives. Here's the power button, a joystick port, and the keyboard port. Over here we have a reset button and a volume dial to control this stereo headphone jack and this built-in monaural speaker. The speaker is pretty loud and doesn't sound too bad, by the way. There's nothing really of interest on the sides or bottom. The right side has a vent, I guess. Let's go to the back. We've got a printer port, an RS-232C serial port, and an analog RGB out. With a simple adapter, you can connect a standard VGA cable here and connect to a VGA monitor. But be careful, monitors supporting the necessary resolutions for PC-88 are becoming increasingly hard to come by, even in Japan. Nowadays, I usually connect a cable to this port, which on the other end has a JP21 connector, also known as Japanese SCART, in order to connect to the FrameMeister X RGB Mini. Now I can connect my PC-88 to an HD TV and also capture footage upscaled to HD resolutions, which is how I get the game footage for PC-88 Paradise. Continuing on, we also have stereo RCA audio inputs and outputs, 2 electrical outlets, and 1 standard power connector. Lastly, we have 2 expansion slots, though to be honest, there really isn't much use for them on this model PC-88, since it already includes internally most of the things you would normally use the expansion slots for on other PC-88s, like FM soundboards. I know some of you would be disappointed if I didn't open this thing up, So here you go. The motherboard doesn't look too hard to remove, but I hope you'll forgive me for not doing so. I'm very comfortable taking apart modern PCs, but I'm a bit afraid of the slight risk that I might break something while taking this thing apart. This machine is in such good working condition and I don't want to chance it. So instead I obtained permission to use someone else's photos of the exposed motherboard. Sorry about the low resolution. Here's also a second image of the same machine. Just some highlights. You can see two CPUs. This one is the main CPU, which can run at either 8 MHz or 4 MHz. The second CPU is 4 MHz and operates exclusively as the floppy disk controller. This machine has 192 kilobytes of system RAM, and you can see lots of ROMs around the CPU. These are things like the BIOS, the basic ROM, and the kanji ROM required to display Japanese characters. And down here is where, in my opinion, the real magic happens. This is the Yamaha YM2608 sound chip. This is identical to the one found on the soundboard 2, which you would normally need to add through the expansion slot on most PC-88 models. This chip gives us 6 FM channels, 3 SSG channels, 6 dedicated rhythm sounds, and 1 80 PCM channel, and with stereo sound. Incidentally, this is also the same sound chip that was on the PC-88's most popular stereo FM soundboard, the PC-8801MC. So now let me tell you what I did when I first got this system. I bought it used and untested for a ridiculously low price. Completely loose with no cables, no keyboard, nothing. It takes a standard power cable, so no problem there. I had a compatible controller, a compatible monitor with the right cable, and the game Ys 3. So we should be good to go, right? Let's boot up Ys 3. That's weird. I think it's supposed to show an opening sequence. Something is definitely wrong. I'm not even pressing anything on the controller. So I thought either this thing is broken or there's something else I need. I had a hunch that maybe not having a keyboard plugged in was making it register key presses as if keys were constantly being held down. I looked for the answer online, but there was very little information available on this machine at the time. So I had to get a keyboard for myself in order to find out. PC-88 keyboards that are compatible with the newer models can be a little bit hard to find separately. Most often when you see a PC-88 keyboard for sale, it will be for one of the original models and will not be compatible with newer machines like this one. I wasn't sure which one I needed, so I bought a couple of different ones. This one, which I ended up paying a pretty penny for, is PC-88 keyboard Type A and works fine with this system. I now know that PC-88 keyboards for the later models are divided into Type A through G, and all of them are functionally the same. This machine was originally packaged with Type G if you're interested. The only differences are cosmetic and whether they are clicky mechanical keyboards or not. So anyway, this clicky one will do. So now let's try Ys 3 again. There we go. Everything working just like magic. The controller works now too. Looks like my used and untested PC-8801MC turned out to be a pretty good buy, despite for maybe the fact that I ended up spending more on the keyboard than I did on the system itself. So I guess it's about time for what you've all been waiting to know. Just what the hell is this weird cover on the top of the system for? If I move the front part of the top forward, I can remove the cover to reveal what looks like a small expansion port of some sort. And some of you might know where I'm going with this, but now I want to show you my PC Engine console and its very yellowed CD attachment. For those who don't know, this is a Japanese TurboGrafX. The CD drive on this system can be removed separately from the interface unit. I'm just gonna take this off here and... That's right, this was the first and only PC-88 model to have a CD drive attachment. In order to save money, NEC decided to use the same CD drive that they were already using on their PC Engine console. There were two different retail versions of the PC-8801MC available. one which included a CD drive and one which didn't for people who didn't want one or already had one for their PC Engine. And in case you're wondering, no, this system won't play PC Engine or TurboGrafx games. It only uses this as a CD-ROM drive to play PC-88 software. With the CD drive attached, this system looks even more like NEC's 1994 console, the PC-FX. Some even speculate that NEC took inspiration from their own previous design when designing the PC-FX. There were only ever 4 CD-ROM titles released for PC-88. 2 games, a dictionary CD-ROM, and a demo disc which was originally included with this system. I was eventually able to obtain a used copy of the demo disc. It contains some game demos, game music, and some other things to mess around with. Maybe I'll show it in more detail in a future episode. As I mentioned, there were only 2 games released on CD-ROM. There were actually more floppy disk games which allowed you to play BGM from the CD drive. Koei, Falcom, and a few other developers released PC-88 games which did this. Here's Koei's game Teitoku no Ketsudan, also known as PTO in English. First, let's play it without the CD soundtrack, using the PC-88 Soundboard 1 for sound. And now here's the same game using the soundtrack CD to play the music. The CD music almost makes me feel like I'm playing a PC Engine CD game. Even the familiar access sounds of the PC Engine CD drive are here. Obviously, this system can also play music CDs. You can control playback either by pressing the buttons on the CD drive the same way you can while connected to a PC Engine, or via an on-screen interface. I know this seems kind of mundane today, but I remember back in the Sega CD and TurboGrafx CD days I was excited to see what the music playback screen looked like on each system. Here's another rare one you can say you've seen now. When you're running a CD-ROM, the LED on the CD drive says PC on it, just like it does when you're playing a PC Engine CD game. A lot of PC Engine players have always wondered why it says PC, but would often assume it was short for PC Engine. Well, I think that might not actually be the case. NEC was likely planning on potentially using this CD drive for a lot of different systems, including PCs, and they probably chose PC as a generic indicator that the drive was connected to a computer of some sort. Hell, they might have even imagined this drive would be used more commonly on PCs than the PC Engine, but that didn't turn out to be the case. Owners of older PC-88 models weren't completely left out of the CD world either. NEC also released the PC-880131 interface unit, which would allow you to connect the same PC Engine CD drive to older PC-88 models via an included expansion board. This unit is incredibly hard to find today, as you would imagine. Tying up the loose ends now, here's the splash screen that the system shows every time it powers up. I've shown this for a few moments in some of my previous episodes. It shows which CPU speed and basic mode the soft dips are currently set to. To adjust the soft dips, you hold the PC key on the keyboard while powering up. Keep in mind I didn't get a manual with this system, and when I first learned how to get into the soft dips and saw this screen for the first time, it was quite a eureka moment. I'll just go over some of the more important settings. Under basic mode, V1S and V1H are older PC-88 graphic modes. Most games won't run unless this is set to the newer V2 mode, so you'll want to keep this set to V2 unless a particular game says otherwise. There are also 3 CPU clock settings. 8 MHz S is the default 8 MHz mode for this system. Some older games won't run at the right speed in this mode though, so for those you need to change to 4 MHz. 8 MHz H is a high-speed 8 MHz mode. From what I can gather from the on-screen description, 8 MHz S is clocked at a steady 8 MHz, while the 8 MHz H just lets the CPU run wild. I don't know if this could be called overclocking, but I guess it's kind of the same idea. I haven't noticed any games that seem to run any smoother with this mode turned on though. The last option on this screen is whether you want to boot from a CD or not. There are 3 other screens of soft dips, but most of them I don't find very interesting. On the last screen you can select what you want the system to do when it boots up. You can select either basic or terminal mode and the number of lines on screen. Also, whether you want to boot from a floppy disk or the internal BASIC ROM. If you set it to BASIC mode and boot from internal ROM, you'll get a nice familiar screen welcoming you to BASIC by asking how many files, which is similar to what happens on most older model PC-88s. Okay, I think that's enough now about the soft dips. Lastly, I imagine I might get some comments saying that I should whiten the outer plastic of this computer and my PC Engine drive. I know they are pretty yellowed with age, but I personally don't mind. Old PCs are supposed to look yellow in my opinion. I've seen pictures and video from other people who have whitened their old hardware, sometimes with very good results, and sometimes not so much. The whitening does not always accurately represent the original white color the system had when it was new, and oftentimes these whitened systems will just inevitably become yellow again as time passes. I respect others who like to whiten their systems, and I hope you will also respect my decision not to do so. So I guess that about wraps up this video on the PC-8801MC. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I did making it. Please check out my other episodes in this series to find out about the games for this system. I'm going to get back to focusing on the games in the coming episodes, and I hope you won't miss it. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll be back with more PC-88 for you soon. Bye for now.